surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1971. Oops, common genealogy mistakes part 3. Yes, we're on to part 3. We did a very short one on part 1. The second one was very long. So tonight we're wrapping up with 9, 10, and 11 out of our 11 common genealogy mistakes. And these happen to anybody researching family trees. These are common errors that everybody does. So before I get started, I have to tell you a very funny, well, to me it was hilarious, Zeffie story. So I was in the guest room sorting through some boxes and that we got in there looking for something. And when I walked into the guest room to sort through some boxes to find something. And I looked down on the floor, and sitting in the middle of the floor, and I've got like 3 rows of things. I've got row over here, row here, and row here, and there's walking space in between. Sitting in the middle of it was one of these. This is Zeffie's milk bones. She loves these things, but she likes to let them mature in her hiding places until she's ready for them. Sometimes, occasionally, very rarely, she will actually eat it when you give it to her. Most of the times she hides it. So I called Zeffie in and I said, "What's this?" and point to the biscuit, and she looks at it, but strangely, looks at it very funnily, and then she turns around and runs down the hallway back towards the front of the house. And then a couple of seconds later, I hear a, "Arr, arr." So I go to find her to see what's going on. She's standing in the room behind the curtains here, next to another one of these. And I looked at her, and like she's standing there, like looking down at it, and looks at me and looks down at this, as though to say, "Well, this is the one I went and hid. It's here. How did it, And so I walked back to the other room, picked up the other one, brought it back, and put it down next to the other one. So she had 2 sitting side by side. And the look on her face was priceless. She looked like, I have no clue what to do with these. She just stood there looking at these biscuits, and then looked up at me and looked down at the biscuits and say, "Well, what am I supposed to do now?" So she ended up picking up one of them and wandering off and hiding it wherever. And then, and that was this one. And then she went and ate the other one. So poor Zeffie, I confused her without even meaning to, without even knowing that she already had one hidden somewhere. I'd accidentally gone and given her another one. Usually, if I know she's got one hidden, she doesn't get another one until that one's gone. But this time she caught me off guard, and I actually ended up giving her 2 because I thought she'd eaten the other one. But so there you go. There's a funny story for you. Okay, so quickly rehashing what we have done over the last 2 days. We have looked at same name, different people. We have looked at, in the middle of the night when you're up doing the thing, you still haven't gone to bed. You're looking at the thing and you're going, "Oh, there's that shiny green leaf. Yes, I can add. That's got the information that I need. Add. No, stop. Go research first." Then we had numbers don't lie. Look at the numbers. Keep track of the numbers. Look at the years of birth compared with the age of the parents. Make sure that they're not 3 years old and having a child. That would be a little bit of an impossibility, but check your numbers. Also, too, if you've got somebody who's in their 60s having children, there's some that I've looked at and they've got like 30 kids listed. And I'm like, these cannot be all of these kids. And I'm looking down the timeline of like the mother, because if you're in Ancestry, every time you put an entry in, it puts what age the mother was at the time that entry happened. One tree I came across had 30 kids. This one was having her last child when she was 72. I don't think so. There is something wrong in that tree. So that tree was not, and this is when I always, in Ancestry, when I see those other trees that say, "Here's the information you want," it's from somebody else's tree. I don't know who they are. I don't know how well they do research. I can go and look at all the sources that they've got there against different information like birth, deaths, and marriages, and other significant things like military service, naturalization, immigration, all those sorts of facts that we need to know, and determine whether or not I need to look at them further. So always check your numbers. Translations and transcriptions. Translating from one language to another, you've got to be very careful with that. As well as transcriptions. Transcriptions can end up being typed up differently to what's actually written. So learning how to read the handwriting, finding a good program for doing translations is a really good thing to do. Assumptions. Oh, look. These 2 people have the same surname. It's a rare surname. They must be related. Yeah, no. In New Zealand, we have 2 branches of the Eakins family. There is the branch that Totally forgot about balloons. Well, let's see what happens. Let's see what else we can pull up tonight. There we go, confetti. So there's 2 different branches of the Eakins family that came to New Zealand. One of those branches I belong to. The other one, we have not yet found a connection to that family. Even though their last name is Eakins, we may or may not be related. There has been no, we haven't found, like I said, we haven't found any connection to that other family. May we be related? Maybe. We don't know. We don't know. So assuming just because they have the same last name, oh, we must be related. Yeah, no, not really. You might not be. So just looking for different things like that, assuming that women always took their husband's last name. Not necessarily. In some cultures, the women keep their maiden name, and the child ends up with a hyphenated last name with the mother's maiden name followed by the father's name. I found that when I was doing Mexican records. Census reports, how accurate are they? You've got to verify, and verify again. Photographic faux pas is like dating a photograph and finding out later on that that photograph was actually taken 10 years later or 10 years earlier. So the people that you put in there couldn't possibly be those people. Just things like that, because there are similarities. I've got this great photograph of my second great grandmother with her second husband. Behind her are the 4, 1, 2, 3. Her 3 children from her first marriage that have survived, because she had 2 other children that died when they were children. They never got to teenage years. Died when they were like young, but they were under 10. So there's 3 children from them, and I know one of them is my great grandmother, who looks exactly like, at the same age, exactly like her daughter, who is my grandmother. So I looked at them and thought, well, that kind of looks like my grandmother, but I found out it was my great grandmother, who, and actually it's also a spitting image of a first cousin of mine as well. So you've got to watch that, because sometimes there will be people that look like other people in there. So just watch those things with photographs. And then the last one we talked about last night was sourcing your citations every time. It's one of those things. It's like flossing your teeth. You know, you're told that you got to do it every day. Some days you do, some days you don't. Same with citations. Many people are sort of like, oh, I won't do that today. I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll catch it up tomorrow. Do it as you go. You will thank yourself later if you do it as you go, especially if you've got to go back and look at a record. It's always good to know. So tonight we're going to look at 9, 10, and 11. Oh, and if you look in the description for this video as well, I've got a list of the books there that we have talked about in this thing with links to them, so you know exactly which books we're talking about as well. I think I also added, hang on, I need to go back to my other notes here. So you've got in there the Genealogy Standard 2nd Edition, Evidence Explained, Mastering Genealogical Documentation, Reading Early American Handwriting, Tracing Your Ancestors Through Family Photographs. I couldn't find my book on my shelf. I know I have that book. It's a really cool book. And then my favorite DNA book is The Family Tree Guide to DNA Testing and Genetic Genealogy by Blaine T. Bettinger. Awesome, awesome book. It puts DNA in plain English. Very easy reading. And then the other one I've got in there too is Tracing Your Ancestors Using DNA, a guide for family historians. And the editor for that is Graham S. Holton. And they've got various people who have submitted work, and he was the editor that put the whole book together. Also, another very good book, also written in plain English. The Family Tree Guide to DNA Testing kind of gives you more of the science side of it, as well as how to use it. And this one, Tracing Your Ancestry Using DNA, is solely based on, it's more about using the DNA to help you find relatives and ancestors than it is about the science side of it. So those are some really good books that are there. They're all in the description down below. Okay, back up here to my notes. Where did I put my notes? Oh, there they are. Okay, so number 10, we're talking technology. And this is one thing that if you've been following me for a while, you have heard this many, many times, in that online, all the documentation online represents less than 5% of all records available for genealogical use. 5%, less than 5% of what is online. There are millions and millions and millions of records online that you can access: birth, deaths, marriages, coroner's inquests, military records, immigration records, passenger lists, or manifests, probate records. What else is on there? There's just a whole slew of deeds are on there as well. Land records. Even some schools have their yearbooks online. There is just a whole slew of documentation, millions and millions and millions of records that are online, yet they represent less than 5% of all records that are available for genealogical use. And we're talking about all those records that are still available, that haven't been destroyed. We're not talking. I mean, there's been millions and billions of records that have been destroyed over time through wars and natural disasters, and just lost. Things that have just gotten lost, buried. So take a walk on the actual record side. Go to an archives, go to a library, go to a history center, a family history center. Go to a place that is not on a computer. Go to a physical building that holds physical records that you can go in and ask for. And if you're not sure which ones are physical, which ones are not, go to familysearch.org and look at their research wiki and put in the county or the parish or the town or the state. Start with the state and work your way down. Look at the state or the country that you're looking for, and they will tell you what records are available online and what ones are not. And they'll tell you that, for example, in Maryland, you can't get a birth certificate for somebody who's living unless you are the person who the birth certificate is for. So nobody in your family, except for you, can go and get your birth certificate in Maryland. I learned that one. But of course, if you don't know if the person's dead or alive, you're kind of stuck in that thing, because if they are dead, you have to produce their death certificate in order to get a copy of their birth certificate. Yeah. So that's a roadblock. That's a big block I've got on one family tree that I'm researching. So do balance online and offline searching. I tell you, I love going into libraries. I love going into those resource centers, whether they're family history, genealogy societies, libraries, archives. I love them all. And I especially love it if they have the little card catalogs. I'm sorry. I used to be a high school. I used to be, when I was at middle school or intermediate, which in New Zealand we call intermediate, you guys here call it middle school, or in high school, I was a school librarian. They had students that could volunteer to work in the libraries during their breaks and lunch hours. And that was helping check books in and out. It was helping shelve the books. It was returning, doing the returning process of checking a book in and putting it on the shelves. And in those days, we had those little date stamps that went on the cards and on that little sheet of paper in the back of the book, or in the front of the book, depending where you were. And we had to make up those little card catalog things and go through that. And we got to make up those card catalog things. We got to learn how to use the Dewey Decimal System. And it was awesome. I loved it. I loved being in the library, working in the library. I loved it so much that I ended up joining the Royal New Zealand Air Force as a publication specialist, which was another word for a librarian. But in that one there, we were amending manuals. So taking pages out that were no longer relevant and putting in the new page with the new relevant information on there. Later on, I moved to publications production, where we actually produced the manuals or the amendments to the manuals that were then sent out to bases. And I will tell you, I got a little cross-eyed, because we also learned to do proofreading as well. So we had to proof everything. Everything had to be proofed 3 times. You had to proofread it. You had to have somebody else in the office proofread it, and then the manager had to, and then the guy, our overseer, supervisor, had to proofread it as well. So it had to be signed off 3 times. And I will tell you, when you're looking at the avionics stuff, and they've got those little tables with all those little numbers, you have to make sure that every single number is correct. If there is one number off, it could be disaster on a plane. In fact, we did have, I remember there was one of our Skyhawks, they were doing a training run with it, and the Skyhawk ended up crashing. Our big boss came in, and he says, right, everybody stop everything you are doing right now, hit save. And we're like, okay, what's going on? He said, we've just had a Skyhawk go down. We need to gather all the information. We're not allowed to amend anything or anything else. We have to pull all the information on every book, on every manual that we have for the Skyhawk, to send off to the investigation units. Yeah, they had to and they went through those books to make sure that every detail in there was correct, including all those little tables with all those little numbers in them. I tell you, those things will send you cross-eyed. Learn to read backwards. Yeah, if you want to check something to that detail, read it backwards, because when you read backwards, you are forced to look at every single number and every single letter. If you're reading forwards, you might miss in a word where 2 letters have been switched, because your brain will pick up the first letter and the last letter and fill in the word based on what you're reading. If you're reading backwards, your brain has to stop and look at each letter individually to make sure it's the right word. It's how you catch the wrong words and things, and how you catch numbers on tables. Read them backwards. So that was technology. So make sure, and like indexing and the optical readers that they have, sometimes the optical readers aren't as good. Maybe it's trying to translate handwriting. It's transcribing handwriting into text so that you can search it. And then you've got all these indexes which will go search the things. We still have microfiche and microfilms in some places. I love those. I would make my mother motion sickness with those. Because at the time I was using them almost on a daily basis, I could very quickly just flip through, get the slide that I wanted, and know that the information I wanted was on a slide. And I kind of already knew exactly where, as soon as I figured out if the pages went across or if they went down in columns, because some of them went in columns, some went in rows. As soon as I figured that out, I knew exactly where I needed to go on that microfiche to get the record that I needed, based on what the starting letters like. What were we looking for? Cleve was the last name we're looking for. So I pulled out the microfiche that would have Cleve on it and put it in, checked the first 2 rows and the first 2 columns and figured out, okay, this is a row 1. So we're going to be, and based on the last 3 letters that it said was on that slide, I knew they were going to be down in the bottom right-hand corner somewhere. So I just went, up, there we are. And my mum was sort of like, will you stop going so fast? I'm getting motions, getting seasickness. So I had to learn to slow down for my mum. Or I just tell her, don't look. I'll call you over when I find it. And then same with microfiche. I knew kind of where in the reel it would be and how fast I'd have to zoom through the reel to get to where I needed to be. So yeah, when you're using stuff like that on a daily basis, it's very, very quick for you to find information that you need on those things. So yeah. The technology, get yourself offline, go to a repository and check out the stuff that they have. They have some great stuff there. Some of them, especially if you're in a county and you're looking for the founders of that county, they will have a book about the founding of the county, and in there all the families will be listed. And you can go pull all that information out. So, go read some of it. Some of them actually have really cool stories about how those founders came to be in that particular county, in that state, and where they came from, how they got to there, and how they decided to live there, and then the contributions they've made to the community since then. Fascinating reading, great stories in there, some amazing, amazing stories in there. And don't forget to back up your data, even if it's held online like Ancestry, Family Tree Maker, MyHeritage, My Legend, any of those online programs and stuff. Make sure you back up your data, because what happens if your account gets closed down for whatever reason, it may be accidental, you could lose all those records. Yes. Back it up if you've got cloud space, back it up to cloud space. If you've got, and also to a hard drive, both, because that information and all those hours that you have spent, like I have around 10,000 people in one tree. Do I want to go researching all of that again? Heck no. I've got little mini trees in there that are just floating around until I find out where they clip into the main tree. Do I want to lose all that? Heck no. Am I backing it up? You bet. Because if anything happens to my Ancestry account, I am told, so I'm not screwed. I can just go and re-upload all those GED.com files. So yes, back up your data. Understand the limitations on indexing and things like that too. Learn advanced search techniques. Don't trust every genealogy hint from every genealogy. Don't trust every hint from genealogy websites. They are a hint, not a fact. So when you see a hint, it is, oh, let me go and check this information, check this hint out to see if it answers my question that I am looking for, the person I'm looking for, or the information that I'm looking for. Does this particular hint answer the question? That says it does. Let me go research and verify that it does fit into my tree. So that's all the hints are. They are hints. They are not facts. Then you've got, don't forget, you're maybe searching your direct line. So just going from parents to grandparents to great-grandparents, second great-grandparents, third great-grandparents, da-da-da-da. Don't forget, they have siblings. You've got cousins in there. You've got aunts and uncles in there. Don't forget to research them, because a lot of times you'll find that when you find that information on an uncle or a cousin or a niece or a nephew on those side branches, They may give you the clues that you need to break through that brick wall for continuing up through your ancestors. If you're just looking at your direct lines, you have to take into account the sidelines as well, because the sidelines quite often will have clues that will help you move up in the main trunk. So don't forget about them. And a lot of times, they have provided the information that I need to go up another level, to go from third great grandparents to fourth great grandparents. And the only way I found that was looking at the siblings of the third great grandparents, or even their grandchildren and siblings and things, and just moving up the tree that way as well. Found lots of stuff that way. Yeah, so you're researching the entire family unit, not just the direct ancestors. Follow siblings through their lives. They may leave you to your parents' death records or other valuable information. Pay attention to witnesses on documents. They're often relatives. So if you've got like a marriage certificate there and it's got people who signed it, look to see who signed it. They could be siblings, they could be cousins, they could be parents. Look to see who were the witnesses at the wedding. If there are any other witnesses for anything, look to see who they were. Quite often it was relative. They used relatives. So I was just checking on her. Research the neighbors, because people often moved in family groups. A family, so it could be mum and dad, and then their kids and grandkids, that family decide that we're going to move from New Jersey to Ohio. So look at the neighbors on the census. Are there people around there with the same names? You may have those side people, all their children, instead of just the direct line, instead of you, your parents, your grandparents. They may have siblings and stuff listed in there, because it might also be that not just the parental unit with their children and grandchildren move, their siblings may decide to go too. So check when you're looking at census reports, check to see who is around them. Always look above and below when you're looking at baptismal records, wedding records, death records. Always look above and below to see who's there. I go quite up. I look to see who else is on the page. In census reports on Ancestry, you can click a button that shows the neighborhood, and I can go down through there and see that, and go to the next screen, go to the previous screen, and see, is there other people around there? Were there people who appeared on that census 10 years ago? Are they now living in the same neighborhood as the relatives that you've just found? So that's another way to do that as well. So research the neighbors, and don't ignore your cousins. They might have the family Bible you're looking for. They may have the information that you're looking for. So for those cousins that are alive, and we're even talking first cousins, second cousins, third cousins, even the removals in there as well, they might have information that has been passed down to them that has the answer to the question that you've been looking for. They may have that record. So that's number 10. Don't forget the siblings and the cousins and the nieces and the nephews and the aunts and the uncles. Just do not forget them, because they can provide you valuable information that helps you move on. Family heirlooms is number 11, is family heirlooms. And the stories they're just gold. They really are. They're gold. But they may not be real gold. They could be fool's gold. So, is that somebody might have a family crest in there, and they're hung up in their house. I know in my parents' house, we have the Eakins family crest up there as well. And my mother also has the Ross family crest, and because I gave it to her. And she also has the Ross family crest on a jewelry box that we gave to her one year. It's this beautiful wooden box with the Ross tartan on it, and on the middle of it, it's got a bronze family crest. And she also has a picture frame, which is about, I don't know, like a 4x6 or a 5x7. And it's got the tartan there with the bronze crest on it as well. I have I was going to bring it out here tonight because I found it yesterday. I have a bear whose paws and chest have the Ross tartan on it, not the crest, just the tartan. But I also have, I found the box the other day, a wooden plaque that has the Ross family crest on it. So look at the crest. Is that your family's crest, or is it just something somebody found somewhere along the way that just happened to have the name on it, but may not be your actual family crest? There you go. Is it a family crest, or was it bought in a gift store? You never know. Descending from royalty, do you really descend from royalty? Take some of those, look at those myths and legends. There may be some truth in it, or it could be. So family stories are clues, not facts. Family stories are clues, not facts. Research research the family heirlooms. Research the story behind the heirlooms. Where did they come from? I have up in my cupboard a bread and butter plate, a saucer, and a teacup, all made in bone china. That when my grandmother was 16, she gave it to her mother, who is my great grandmother, and I happen to have that little tea set. I also have some like cake plates, serving plates that were my grandmother's as well. What else have I got in there? I'm trying to think what else I've got. I've got my little vase over here that I made when I was 4 and when I was in kindergarten at the age of 4. See, we made that with plaster of Paris, and we got to choose our color, and I wanted red. I actually wanted black and got told I couldn't have it. And so then I went for red, and it turned out more of a pinkish color. And then we decorated it with shells. I still have it. It was just a mason jar. I still have it. It's sitting, in fact, here it is right here. Oops, I'll take the little puppy out. Brett gave that to me one Valentine's. Isn't that cute? So this is my little shell vase that I made when I was 4 years old. It looks more orange than it does pink, but it was actually pink at the time. It's very dirty on the inside, but it's just a mason jar. That's all it is, just a mason jar that we got to cover in a colored plaster of Paris, and then we stuck the shells on it. Some of the shells have broken off over time, but I made that when I was 4. I'm now 58. This thing's 54 years old. It's got a lot of discoloration on it because of where it's been sitting over time, and yeah, but it's still there and it's still holding up. And it made the trip from New Zealand to the US, and it's about to make the trip back to New Zealand again. And I've got that's the other thing I've got is I've got a oak barometer that was my great-grandfather's, and I'm trying to remember which side of the family it was on. Can't remember if it was on my mum's side of the family or my dad's side of the family, but it was my great-grandfather's. It doesn't work, but it's a really cool piece. So look at those heirlooms. Where did they come from? And that's the other thing that I have too is a cross stitch that my great-grandfather did. I'm trying to remember which great-grandfather it was. It was on my dad's side of the family because this thing sat in a frame in the dining room, in the dining area of my grandmother's house. And it was up there, and one of my great-grandfathers had done that. And it's just a really cool, and it's of a knight on a horse with his lance. It's really cool. And and it was a cross stitch. Not a cross stitch, a piece of embroidery. It's a big piece. I'm going to get it framed again when I get back down to New Zealand so I can hang it up. Because currently it's folded up in tissue paper and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, my great grandfather did that cross stitch. It's really, really cool. You can be open when you are looking up these family myths and legends. Be open to the fact that they may not be true. Okay, so be open to the fact that you could be proving that this story doesn't exist, or you could be proving that it does exist. You may want it to exist and it doesn't, or you don't want it to exist and it does. So, be very open-minded, especially when you're doing the research and everything else. And use DNA to verify or disprove family legends. Are we related to this person? Are we related to that person? Use that to do that. And remember that truth can be just as interesting as the myth. And I will tell you this. Mark Twain once said, and I'm paraphrasing it, but he basically said that truth is stranger than fiction because fiction has to make sense. The truth does not. So there are some wild stories out there. And I have one from a client. I was actually talking to her the other night. I totally forgot to ask her if I could do this. But I have one client who said, we've got this name in our family. Can you prove if we are related to this particular person in history? I said, well, you won't be a direct descendant because he never had any kids. And she said, oh, thank goodness for that. When you find out who it is, you may understand that. But then in doing the research on that particular branch of her tree, I found out that she had connections to other famous historical people and historical events that took place. Well, the historical event one was still working on that one. But there is a possibility that she could be related to a specific historical event that took place. And that family was involved in that event very heavily. So we're researching that right now. And so we're getting more information because some records state that second great grandmother was a cousin of this other famous person. Whereas the information that I have discovered so far doesn't prove that she was a cousin, but proves that she was related in a different way. I will leave you with that. I can't go into more than that. But then there's all the stories that just kept happening. Generation after generation were coming through with all these stories and everything else. And I'm just like, wow, what else are they? And I just keep wanting to research this tree because there's these amazing stories coming up. I actually found a newspaper article that her second great grandfather had written about his life, and about this historical figure and the role that he played in their life. It was an incredible story. And there was something in there about, what was the thing about his wife? He married the woman he married was the sister of his best friend. And I can't remember. It was something about how he married her because nobody else would want her or something like this. It wasn't a particularly romantic match by what I got from what I read in the article, the way I interpreted the article. But it made for a really good story anyway, especially when we found out who she was related to later on. But yeah, and they were founders in a particular county. And so we got to read their story of how they came to that county, how they got to settle in that county, and the contributions that they made to the community during that time as well. They actually did a whole write-up on his 89th birthday, I think it was. He had a birthday party for his 89th birthday. It might have been his 80th. And they brought up all the history about how he had come to this county and how him and his family had settled it and So there's some very interesting stuff out there. And when you put it all together and you just got the story after story after story after story, you're sort of like, really? That happened in one branch, that happened. And when I reminded, when I was talking with my client and I was doing the discovery call with her, which I totally forgot to record. I still have to go back and record it. She was just amazed that this was just one generation after another after another. It was like 3 generations that we went through. There were just these amazing, amazing stories. And she's literally sitting there with her chin down on the desk almost the entire time. She had a pen in her hand to take notes, and she was just so astounded by what was going on. She wasn't even taking notes, which hurt more afterwards because I realized that I hadn't recorded the whole thing. So now I've got to go back and do that recording again. But I may have more information to go. But I'll do what I will do before I go back and do that recording is I will go and do another look through, because with my clients, I always go back every now and again, like once or twice a year, I'll go back and pull up their stuff and see if I can find that missing record that I'm looking for, or see if I can find further information about that family. I'm going to do a look through that first before I then go in and maybe we might find that she's a distant, because we found a book that was written in 1942, published in 1942. It was first published in 1912, and then they republished it in 1942 with more pages in there and more information. And even the guy who did the compiling of putting all this stuff together, he was the main researcher. He even stood in there. He says, this is the information that we've been able to find with the assistance that we have. Maybe down the track, there'll be other ways that we can find more information. We just don't have the resources right now to go and do the deeps. Maybe we'll have more resources later down the road where we'll be able to make the connection, because they're pretty sure that this particular league that my client is in and the league of this famous person, they're pretty sure that those two are related. They just couldn't find that connection. I'd love to find that connection for her. See if there is that. See if we can find that connection with the technology that we have now compared to 1942. So you're talking about 82 years ago. I'm pretty sure we might be able to find some more information than what they had. We'll see. But anyway, so that's the other one, Leo. And just because, your great-grandparent tells your story doesn't mean to say it's true. It could just be hearsay. Mind you, if it is a story about their childhood and stuff, you could almost take it as gospel, but I would still check the story. Because sometimes memories fade over time and details get taken out and other details get handed in. And so the story that they are telling you may or not be 100% true, but it could be about 80% true. Until you research, you won't know. So those are our last 3 on the mistakes that we made. And just remember, you're going to make mistakes along the way. It's okay. I still, to this day, I've been researching genealogy for over 40 years. I've done completely boots on the ground research before it went online. I've done a lot of online research, I've done it all. I've done the manual stuff. I've done the stuff online. been online, offline for over 40 years. And to this day, I still make stupid mistakes. It's because I get tired and it's 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and I haven't been to bed yet. Actually, I haven't done that much since Brad passed. I did it more when Brad was still alive because he would get up in like the middle of the night coming and going, "You coming to bed?" And I go, "Why?" It's like, you realize it's 2 o'clock in the morning, don't you? And I went, "Oh, no, let me just finish this one thing and I'll come to bed." An hour later, I finished that thing and the one after it. And then my brain starts scrambling. So I still make mistakes, especially if I am tired. So when I do my research, especially on client stuff, I make sure that it's at my peak performance time, which is mornings, so that I can get in there with a fresh brain that's not tired and my eyes are open and I double, triple, quadruple check my work. I'm just that anal about it when it comes to clients. On my own tree, not so much, but when it comes to other people's tree, yeah, I am super, super cautious with that. I'm starting to filter that into my own tree, but I know I make mistakes. I am not perfect. Nobody is. But sometimes you just laugh about them. And poor Zeffie, she gets to hear everything. Is she interested? Heck no. The fact that I'm talking to her, heck yeah. You're talking to me, Mum? Okay, I'll listen. But I'm just going to let her off to sleep over here. Hey, sweetie girl. Yep, she's sitting here. She's listening. Here, do you want your milk bone? You have your milk bone. We're sniffing it with caution. Nope, she doesn't want a milk bone right now. She'll want one of these. This is her little treat jar that I carry with me. We're trying to prevent the seizures, and the seizures are because her blood sugar levels drop. People. And so, yeah, she got fed at 2:30 this morning. I happened to get up and I was like, right, I'm up. She's getting some treats. Just trying to prevent it. And then when I got up at 5 o'clock, I scrambled her a couple of eggs and didn't prevent the seizure this morning. So we're still trying to figure out what's going on. But I think the all protein snack that she had or her all protein breakfast of 2 scrambled eggs, unseasoned, just straight 2 eggs in a nonstick pan, completely cooked with nothing in it, just the eggs. I think that might have been enough to drop her because her insulin is higher than her blood sugar levels. And so we think, and the vet, when they tested her last week, they gave her a little bit, they did a fasting test since she hadn't eaten since the night before, and it came out at 63, which is right on the bottom of their low side of the blood sugar levels. They gave her a little bit of food to eat and it dropped down to 49. So I think giving her 2 eggs this morning might have been, maybe should have done 1 and given her another one later on. So we're experimenting to try and find the right balance where she wants to go out for a walk in the morning and doesn't have the seizures in the morning. So we're in experimentation mode right now. But with that, anyway, we're out of here. Started with a Zeffie story, finished with a Zeffie story. We are out of here. Don't forget, for those in New Zealand, happy Christmas Eve. I know it's Christmas Eve down there. I'm excited about tomorrow because tomorrow I get to talk to my parents and my brother and his wife. We get to get on Zoom tomorrow while they're at my when my brother gets to my parents' place. We'll get on a Zoom with them and have a conversation with them. So that's tomorrow night, which means I've got to find the exact time. They were talking about 3 p.m., which would be 7 p.m. here, which is Mountain Time, which is the time that I do my lives, which is 6 p.m. Pacific. So I have to confirm that time because I will be on tomorrow evening, as close to our normal time as possible. Once I get the time down, then it'll either be half an hour before or it won't be after. It'll be before I get online with them because we could end up talking longer than half an hour. Yes, it's lots to talk about. But anyway, with that, we are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening. To all my family and friends in New Zealand, happy Christmas Eve. And we will catch everybody back here tomorrow evening around